Hi, this is Russ Andersson. In this tutorial, I'm going to talk about the Smudge tool, which lets you edit existing meshes to better match the imagery of your scene. Now, this tool is typically used after you've already match moved a mesh into the scene, and now you discover that maybe your mesh, is slightly out of whack in some spots compared to the real object in the real world. So you just want to make a few minor adjustments to your mesh. So the Smudge tool will let you do that. Now, you can find the tool on the geometric hierarchy toolbar. Now, you don't have to be using any of the geometric tracking stuff to use the Smudge tool. It is a completely independent mesh editing tool, but it does have a whole bunch of parameters that it shares with a bunch of the geometric hierarchy tools as well. So for that reason, it's on the geometric hierarchy tracking toolbar. So our test object today is a Stanford bunny, and let's just assume that we have a whole shot set up here. Normally we would probably work in a wireframe mode for working on the interior of an object, which we're going to do initially, and you'd have the imagery from the shot displayed behind the object so you can see exactly where the mesh falls on the image at some particular frame. But for our purposes, we'll just use the solid view. It's a little easier to see what's happening. So if I go and start click and drag in the image, you'll see that a circle appears, and inside the circle I am moving around part of the mesh. And that motion is parallel to the image plane, not to anything in the 3D environment itself. So the change isn't happening at all at the circle. The circle represents the outer limit of the change. We're making the change 100% at the middle and blending it in between. So the size of that circle is determined by the brush size over here. But kind of more conveniently, you can use the scroll wheel on the mouse even while you're doing the adjustment to make easier changes to see what's happening. So that's kind of handy. Now, with this particular mode, it would be difficult to make some kinds of detailed adjustments. For example, to adjust an upper lip while leaving a lower lip unchanged, when things are really close together like that, but still need to be handled separately. So there's a soft selection mode as well. So I'm going to go to do that now. Let's just rotate around. We're going to play with the bunny's ears here. And I'm going to start moving him around. And now it looks like, the whole bunny is moving. But instead, what's going on is that the soft selection range is set by this range value over here, which is, it just happens to be fairly large to start out with. So the size of the brush is measured in pixels. That's the size of the circle. But this range value is measured in the coordinates of the environment, the 3D environment. So that might be inches or meters or whatever. And it's actually measured along the surface of the object. So the distance from this point here to this point over there is not measured in 3D that way. It's measured down the surface and back up. So that means that you're going to be affecting things locally there. So let me start doing that again. And now I'm going to start dialing down the range value using my scroll, and now you can see, now I'm adjusting just the ear of the bunny. So now if my bunny's ear was a little out of whack, we could just line up his ear a bit better and not mess up anything else, and you get a nice smooth blend across the rest of the thing. Now, if I get to be a bit more extreme, you'll see something else happen. as I get way down here, you'll notice that there's all this crap in the back here. And what's going on is that by default in the mode that we've got, we're only affecting the surface of the object. And that was good for doing the eye over here. We don't want to be affecting anything on the back side of the bunny. But here, that's not such a good idea. So let's just undo that. And we'll now set the mode to be a through brush. So now when I click here, I'm selecting everything all the way through to the back side of the bunny. And now if I move all the way down, you can see there's nothing untoward happening in the back. We're moving all those vertices. So depending on what you're doing, this through mode is better. The surface mode is for making adjustments in the middle of the object where you want to affect just the surface. The through mode is good now for making adjustments, especially around the periphery of an object. So typically what you're going to do is, on some particular frame, I'm going to go and adjust the position of the bunny's ear to get it to line up. And, I'm looking at this outline here to adjust it to line up. So now I might go to a different part of the shot, and, now we're looking from a slightly different view. And again, I can make some fine different adjustment. Now I probably want to go back to my original view and check and see how it aligns up there. So, if you get to be doing something too extreme, there's you run the risk of going in circles. But as long as you're making a relatively small change and the rest of your track is good, you should be able to just adjust that outline to better match up. So there are a few other controls that do affect this. You can adjust the strength control so that when you go and drag by a certain distance, you're making only a certain fraction of that. There's also an updating control that affects this as well. You can check out some of the details on that in the manual. One other thing, if you go to a quad view, or alternatively another perspective view, you can hold down the control key and now make the adjustment toward and away instead of parallel to the plane. So, there my pixel value is a little large, so I was picking up both ears, which is a little entertaining anyway. But so you can make the directions towards and away as well as just perpendicular to the image plane. And if you're doing that, you probably want to be looking at it in some other view as well. And I'll point out that with the perspective view, you do have the option of using a freeze on frame in here that you can freeze on this frame. So you have multiple perspective views. You can set one of them to look at some particular frame and then go and look in a different perspective view at a different frame and use the two of them and go back and forth a little bit to do some adjustment. Thanks a lot for watching.